Yo, yo, YouTube! Hello, I'm here. This is my weekly summary for last week. Week ended on Saturday, which was the 16th of September. Now, today it is, for full disclosure, Wednesday, 20th maybe? I don't know. And I have had a few days not working because my van has broken down. I'll tell you about the breakdown along with what happened last week. So let me start off with the summary of my weekly figures for the week ending the 16th of September. So last week I worked in the end 6 days. A total amount of miles driven of 2,401 miles, 2401. I worked a total in the week of 72 and a quarter hours, and my gross earnings was £1,610, 1610. I spent on fuel £384.47, which meant that my net earnings after fuel was £1,226, 1226. I had quite a low pence per mile earnings because of my adventure on Saturday, which went to Scotland and back, and that was 51 pence .04. That's for every mile I drove last week. That's how much I earned, whether it's loaded or unloaded. My average amount of money earned per day over the 6 days, after fuel costs are taken off, was £204.26. So significantly below my target. And my average hourly rate for that week, based on removing £80 per day for business costs, came to £10.32 per hour on average worked. Now, what happened last week? So, I've done a video for each of the days, so I won't go through the whole week, but Saturday was a bit different, and I'll tell you about what I did Saturday, a bit more detail. I did do some short videos for it, which I thought was quite a good way of doing Saturday, but let me give you a bit more information. So on Friday night, a job came up that went from, let me remind myself, I think it was Boston. I think it was Boston to Lanark. And it was 288 miles on the system for a Saturday morning, and I was looking at the job. I just happened to look at the job, but I had nothing else planned for Saturday, and I thought, well, what if I bid on that job? What would I bid on that job to give me a realistic expectation to get it, but would make it worth doing even if I got nothing else back? So I did a quick calculation in my head. I did £325, and I worked out the mileage at 16 pence per mile for 288 miles there and back would be £91. So I worked out that I would earn about £225 just to take up the load and come back dead. And I thought, that's not too bad. I've got nothing else on. I'll do that. It'd be a good experiment. I wanted to try a Saturday job out just to see what else there was around. And I always had the opportunity, although a remote opportunity, to find some sort of job, even if it's only a £50 job, coming back. And I now realise that that was doubly unlikely, but I'll tell you why in a moment. So there was a reason why it was unlikely. That was because it was Saturday. But the other reason why it's doubly unlikely is I was expecting to get a job back probably about Manchester way, Leeds way, just £50, just something local. But I realised by the time I got there, it would have been way past 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I was in that area about 7 o'clock, and so the likelihood of getting a job, any job, on a Saturday is remote, is unlikely, full stop. But then if it's actually in the evening on a Saturday, think that's doubly remote. So the only opportunity I really had to get a small job was when I was in Scotland. So and there was a job from Glasgow to Edinburgh on a Saturday, but I wasn't quite getting there in time. It was a pickup about 15 minutes before I was due to arrive at my drop-off location, and it didn't quite fit into my time scale. But that was the only job that I got that was close to me. And so really, to get a small job, I have to get one up near my drop-off location rather than on the way back, because of the time that I was sort of leaving and coming back. So my pickup was due from Boston at 9 o'clock, and I arrived, I think, about 8:15. And I just said, I'm a bit early. Are you ready? And it was just a few items. I got to the security gate, rang the bell. There was no answer originally when I first rang the bell, and then a guy walked up from inside the gate and opened the gate. And he had a high vis on and obviously worked there, and he pointed to behind the security gate, and there's a pile of stuff which was for me to take up. So it was all there, but probably been there overnight. So me getting there early was not an issue at all on this occasion. So he helped me load up these items by hand. I counted them on. One slight note, I pride myself on being reasonably clever. But it's amazing how I've struggled to count stuff when I'm under even the slightest amount of pressure. So I'm counting on these items and I'm losing track. I'm thinking, how many was it? So I have to now have a little notepad with me and make a note every so often about how many items are on there. Otherwise, I will just forget what number I'm up to. My youth is a long time gone. Being old isn't necessarily great in some respects. In some respects, it's great, but in other respects, not being able to count in twos very well is not a good thing. Oh dear. Anyway, so I got those items on. It's really small. I think I much said in my video. You could have got it in a small van in my short. I think it was on as a long wheelbase job, but it was definitely a small van job. It wasn't that heavy. It could have easily been done by anyone really. It wouldn't have fit in a car. That's the only thing you could have done, or a motorbike. So then at this point it was it's probably about 8:20 by the time I got off site, and then I looked at my Google's maps, and it was 5.5 hours non-stop journey. So my first decision was, am I going to do it non-stop, or am I going to stop in the middle? So I gave my ETA as being 3:30. Google Maps said it was going to be more like 2 o'clock, maybe 1:45. Yeah, about 1:45. So maybe 10 to 2. So I gave myself a good hour and a half leeway to get up there, and then I made my way up to Scotland. It was lovely. It was a bright, lovely day, really nice, and I felt really good about the world, and everything was going well. So I made my way up. After about 2 hours, I was thinking, should I stop? And I thought, no, I want to get straight up there, get there as soon as I can, and then if I can, I want to get to the toilet after 2 hours, but I thought, let's just keep going as far as I can, and in the end I resolved I'll get there, hopefully there'll be a toilet on site, and then I'll be able to just save some time. So I didn't rush in terms of speeding. I went up about 60 miles an hour, but I didn't stop for a break. Went straight from Boston, straight to Lanark, non-stop, nice and easy, lovely roads. I ended up, the sat-nav took me sort of up the A1M and then across country, might be in the A66 possibly, and then up the M6. And that isn't my preferred route to get to Scotland in terms of its scenery. I do know the M6 route to Scotland quite well now, but I much prefer going up the east coast, up past the northeast, and then sort of cutting across country, because there's a lovely border crossing right in the hills between England and Scotland, and there's a viewpoint. I've never stopped there. I haven't stopped there yet, but one day I want to stop there, just show you the view. It's an amazing view between the two countries. On the M6, just a motorway. It's not very interesting. That's where I ended up going this time. So on Saturday, it was about getting there as quickly as possible, at least not necessarily in terms of speeding, but in terms of not having brakes, not doing slow roads, just going from A to B directly. And I noticed in my videos, as I was going up to Scotland, the weather turned. It was a bit greyer. It's still quite nice weather, but it wasn't quite as bright blue sky as when I left. But it's still nice. It was a nice trip up. And I got to the drop-off point, and it ended up being, in the end, I suppose it would be, I would classify it as a tip, as in literally a refuse site. I don't know whether it was or whether it. I mean, but I don't think it's open to the public. I think it was just a council refuse type. And what's interesting about it is I've been to those where I live, and they're just big piles of rubbish on the ground, and they smell and they look horrible. But this one was really interesting because it was in the mountains, so you couldn't see any of the refuse building up from the local countryside. It was just in the mountains. There was lots of wind turbines around, so obviously generating power. And there's this. I think there's I'm assuming it was a biomass power station of some sort, utilising the waste. So it did smell on site big time, but you couldn't see from the public areas anything really. It was just part of the countryside. So I thought it was a really interesting use of the mountains. I never really thought about hiding a tip in the mountains in Scotland. So it's quite a good idea, I thought. So I got offloaded. They did have a toilet, thank goodness. So I used the toilet facilities there and got offloaded, and then made my way back. The only issue I had, the only small issue I had, was when I tried to upload my proof of delivery and to create the invoice, where I was, there was no phone signal because I was in the middle of a mountain range, and so I couldn't do that on the site. I had to wait till I got off site and was down about 2 miles down the road before I uploaded my pod, and it would upload it on CX. But that was soon done. It was about this time. No, I suppose, to be honest, for the last couple of days before this, for probably about Thursday last week, I noticed my engine was sounding a little bit rougher than it usually does. It wasn't anything I was worried about. I just thought, I've noticed that sounds different. But as I've said before, I'm sure, if not, I'm going to say it now very clearly, I have got no mechanical skills whatsoever. I know how to check for the oil level. I know how to fill up the water screen wash and the engine coolant. I know how to check my tyres. I know where to buy replacement lights from. And I know where to put the fuel. That is the extent of my mechanical knowledge. And so if something goes wrong with my van, my approach tends to be hope it works until it doesn't. And I have a regular servicing routine every sort of 15, well, it varies. I'm probably going to make it less now. I would say 20,000 miles. No, take that back. My servicing routine, to be honest, is every 3 months. Now, since I've done this job, that means 3 months could be about 20,000 miles, 25,000 miles, which is probably too long an interval now. When I did my previous job, 3 months was like overkill. But now that I'm doing this number of miles a year, I have to probably reassess that every 3 months is too long to wait for a mini service. I used to do a full service, and then a mini service, and a full service, and a mini service 4 times in the year. I think now, having had this experience, I'm going to need to go to something more like every other month, do a service, a mini service. So every two months, do something. Anyway, so the point is, I have no mechanical knowledge. So if something goes wrong, it's just, I'll ignore that until I have to address it, because I can't do anything with it. So on Saturday, on the way back, it was sounding as it had done for the last couple of days. And then I would say, so I went to a supermarket before I left where I dropped off to get some provisions. I was quite hungry, so I had got a few things to eat, and then I made my way back, and it was, say, I had a 5.5 No, I had a 5-hour journey from that point because I'd driven down the road a bit to get some provisions, and this would have been something like 2:30, 2:45, maybe. Can't remember quite the time. So I was aiming to get back, if I hadn't stopped, by about 8 o'clock. But I didn't think I'd get back without stopping, so I kind of estimated 9 o'clock before I get back. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention, didn't I, in this video, you're seeing a blank screen because I haven't got my van at the moment, as I'm about to tell you the story about not having a van, and I really don't want to share with you what my house looks like, and it is horrible weather outside. So if I went outside and did a little walk, you wouldn't hear me. I'd get wet and cold and miserable. So I'm afraid for this video, it just has to be a blank screen. I couldn't think of anything else to show you, and my computer's just gone off. So rather than it being a light blank screen, now it's a dark black screen. If I put the computer back on, it'll go back to light. There you go. There's a bit of variety for you. So where was I? I was coming back down. I used to be home, I would say, by about 9 that night. I was looking for jobs. Oh yeah, let me tell you about the jobs. So I did make a note of all the jobs that I came across on Saturday. And so these would have been jobs that would have been within my radius as I went up from England to Scotland and back down again. And I wanted to double check how many jobs were there on a Saturday. This is also part of the experiment. And whether I would be in range of any of them, because if I was, I'd have a good chance of winning them. I counted them up. On the way up, there was 3 jobs in England. They were roughly around about the Manchester, Coventry area, but I wasn't really anywhere near them when they came up. And then when I got to Scotland, there was 1 job from Glasgow to Edinburgh, which would have been almost achievable, but I didn't quite get there in time. And then there was another job which I was so tempted to do. It was going from just north of Glasgow to about 200 miles northwest, right into the really upper left-hand side as you look at a map of Scotland. It was a car job, and it stayed on there for quite a long time. And I thought I'd love to do that job, but it made me tramping out in Scotland, and in hindsight I'm glad I didn't do it for loads of reasons. It would have been a nice earner because there's no one else going to do that on a Saturday, but I would have been probably stuck. I would have been stuck in Scotland if I'd done that with my van not lasting. So there were 2 jobs on Saturday within range of me, and then on the way back down there were 2 more in England. I think one was about Leeds way, but I wasn't anywhere near it, but someone got it, came up, and one was probably northeast. But anyway, so in the end there was no opportunities for any other work for me to pick up, either, well, obviously not going up because I had a load, but coming back down there's no opportunities for work, which is fine. I priced it to at least not worry about that too much. But anyway, the point is that as on my way back down, probably about an hour into my journey, my engine started to rattle a bit, just a little bit more than it had done the last few days. And that rattling got a little bit worse and worse. And 2 hours in, it was quite a noisy rattle. I stopped my van at a lay-by, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to at least attempt to look at what's going on. And I was 190 miles away from home at this point, 190. And I thought, I have got recovery, but my recovery is going to take me a couple of hours to get to me, and then it's going to be a good 3 hours home. And then I've got to get my van to a garage as well as me get home. It's going to be a nightmare. So I wanted to get as close to home as possible before I had to call out a recovery truck. So I looked at the engine, and I couldn't see anything, but I would say that the rattling came, I would say it felt like it's coming from inside the engine bay, obviously, because I had it open, and it was rattling. I would probably describe it like imagine some sort of filter not attached and sort of like rubbing inside the tube, sort of rattling. So I felt like it definitely sounds like something's wrong here, but I had no idea what it could be. And the engine itself was ticking over normally. There wasn't any sort of spluttering or any different power. There was no different power. So I thought, well, I'll keep going. I'll just keep it ticking. I was going about 50 miles an hour most of the way down, just to sort of nurse it down. I was counting the miles off, and I was listening out for it, and it wasn't a very relaxing journey, I must say. And I was counting off the miles down with my partner on my text. 150 miles to go, 130 miles to go, 100 miles to go. And I did I think I did one video which said "eek," which was my short saying this has happened, and then I got to about half an hour. So I got off the motorway. I got to within about half an hour of home, about 25 miles or so, maybe 45 minutes from home, and suddenly my engine management light came on again with it said what did it say? I'm trying to think of the wording. Electrical system fault, service required, something like that. And yes, so let me give you a bit of context for my van. Okay, this is my brain is whizzing, trying to tell you everything without forgetting stuff. So, on the way up, no, scrap that. A few weeks ago, I described in my videos an engine management light that I had, which was about the AdBlue system. And I had a time where I had it checked before, and there was no issue found. So in the intervening weeks, what I've had is every so often, I have an engine management light that says AdBlue system failure, service required. And there's a countdown for 500 miles down, saying engine cut off after 500 miles. And I've come to understand that isn't actually a real fault. It's a fault with the sensor, or it's a fault with the system. What I've done in those weeks is I've kept it filled up with AdBlue, and I've just kept going, and nothing untoward happens. When I turn the engine off, more often than not, the engine management light goes off, and it doesn't come back on again for days at a time. And I hadn't had this warning come on for a couple of weeks at least. And as I set off towards Scotland from Boston, I was counting in my head 288 miles there, 288 miles back. If this engine light comes on and says 500 miles to go, I'm not going to make it there and back. And I got sort of halfway up, and the light hadn't come on, and I thought I've not got enough mileage. If it comes on, if the worst thing happens and it comes on for my 500 mile countdown now, I've got enough mileage to get to Scotland and get back again. So it wasn't in the back of my head that I might get this AdBlue warning come up again. But it didn't. I got all the way to Scotland, no problems whatsoever. And I turned around, got my provisions, and came back down. And it was probably about half an hour, 20 minutes into my journey back where that warning came up. So for the first time for a couple of weeks, I had the AdBlue system failure, 500 miles to engine turn off. But I just ignored that because I've done that for the last few weeks and nothing's happened. So I had that alarm counting down all through the trip. So that was one thing, and I had an orange engine management light on because of that. And I had my AdBlue orange light on because of that. But I've had that before, and I don't worry about that anymore. But what happened about half an hour from home was this second buzzer and AdBlue and warning. What does it do with AdBlue? It said electrical fault, service required. And I thought at this point, that's something I should worry about. So half an hour, 45 minutes from home, 25 minutes from home, I was thinking this could seriously now be the end of my journey. And so I was thinking, well, at every point, can I pull over at this point? You know, by now it was dark, so it would have been about 8 o'clock, roughly, at 8:15, and it was dark, and I really had to try to get home before I had to call recovery out. So I was coming back with this light on, and I got closer and closer to home. I did my last video about 15 minutes from home on my last short, giving the figures for the day, assuming that I got home. And then the rest of the 15 minutes was trying to get home without anything else untoward happening to my van. It felt fine to drive. There was no issues with the driving style. The engine itself sounded, apart from the rattling noise, sounded okay. It sounded like it was steering fine. It was braking fine. The lights were all right. So it felt like a safe thing to drive. It was just this warning light saying service required, electrical failure. Yeah. So long story shortened, I did get home that night without breaking down. I pulled in, I even coasted the last few meters just in case I was really on the edge, and then coasted in, as in I wasn't literally coasting, I was just not using accelerator. And I pulled into my drive, and I was there, and I was really relieved to be home. And that was the end of the day. So that was the end of Saturday. That was the end of my working week. And at the start of this video, I've given you the figures for that week. So really, that is the end of the video, because that's where my week ends. I haven't had an opportunity since then to really tell you about that day in more detail, other than the shorts I did on the day. And I did like doing the shorts, and you'll see, I suppose, I haven't looked back in the back, but you'll see a blue sky cheery first video, and then a very dark can I get home last video. So it's very much a bit of a story that day, of those 5 or 6 shorts I did. Anyway, so my plan then was on Monday to get my van to the local garage and get to look at it. And I didn't do my video over the weekend because I'm trying to keep these secret from my partner. And I was thinking on Saturday, well, should I tell her about my videos now? Because I want to do this YouTube video to tell me about the week, but I've got no opportunity to do it in secret. And I was thinking, well, why don't you tell her? Why don't you, say this? And there's a whole lot of things going on in my head about why I shouldn't say it. I came to the conclusion that I am going to tell her, but I'm not ready yet. And I want to probably get out the last few videos that I want to get out about me. That's still important to me to get out in the public. Also, while I'm on the subject of this, I watched another YouTuber's video over the weekend. I don't want to give out too much information. It made me think really carefully about why I'm doing these videos and what I'm really doing it for. And I had some doubts about my rationale, but now that it's Wednesday, I'm kind of more secure with my rationale. And I will share with you a little bit of my doubts. And I haven't got an answer for this yet, but I will think about it again. So, my doubts are this: why am I doing these videos anonymously? Why not just not do them at all? Now, I know positive reasons why I like doing the videos anonymously. And I've said some of the reasons already, and there are some other reasons I haven't said yet. And to cut a long story short, it's about being heard. It's an opportunity for me to be heard. I don't want to be seen, but I do want to be heard. I want to be valued, and I want to be, have some sort of impact on the world. But I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be seen. Now, that's the short of it. I'm not going into more detail than that. And I think I can stand by that. And today, on Wednesday, I can stand by that, and I'm happy with that, and I will keep doing the videos for the time being. But when I looked at this over the weekend, this other YouTube, and the way they do it, they're very different to me, and they do it in a very different way, and they are a very different kind of person. And for them, they do it their way. I just don't want to do it in the same way. And I kind of thought, well, they're really, I don't know what's the word, established, I suppose. And I'm new to this. So is their way the right way? And I'm thinking now, no, it doesn't matter about doing it the same as other people. You do YouTube the way you want to do YouTube if you're a creator. And I'm not trying to copy anyone else. And there are elements, that copy other people. So I definitely would say that Val on the Run and the Saintsman videos, in terms of the structure of the analytics, I would say I'm pretty much a copy of their videos, but it's within my own style. And other than that, you obviously get stuff from other people's YouTube videos, how they do stuff. You know, from the number of videos you do to what you talk about to whether you're on camera or not. They're all elements you take from other people. And so you have to, I think, kind of evolve and take on what already exists. But what I'm saying is there are elements of what I do that are copied, but not necessarily deliberately. But there are elements that are not copied, that are unique to me. And I'm happy with that. I'm going to stick with that until I decide it's no longer going to work for me. I've got more things that I want to say. And I think that part of what I get from the YouTube is a sense of community. But I am perfectly aware that even if there are people listening to this that agree with things I say, there'll be some things that you think I don't agree with you, and vice versa. So I'm not trying to find a copy of a community of clones. I'm just trying to establish a community of people who are kind of vaguely like-minded, who share values that I have, who want to hear the sort of things that I want to say, and in return, you tell me stuff that I learn from or I want to hear about. So there is a to and fro in terms of this community, and I think there's elements of that I like about this, but there's also dangers to that. There's dangers of being open and honest to people who aren't used to it or don't see things the same way as you do. So they might misinterpret what you say or deliberately want to rebel against the things you say because they just want to cause mischief or they just want to be nasty. I've already expressed what my values are, and I'm trying through my videos to be open and honest and kind. Kindness is a big part of what I want to be, and it may or may not be successful, I don't know, but that's part of what sort of person I want to be. But I'm aware that people out there who don't want to do those things, who want to be misinterpreted, who want to be unkind, who want to, shout out their views and not listen. I want to be listening as much as saying. Anyway, so that's a bit of explanation as to why I had my bit of crisis of confidence over the weekend, because the other YouTube video that I was watching didn't have those kind of values, and I was thinking, well, am I going to end up like that? I'm not talking about the actual person who's doing the YouTube videos, but the kind of the community that evolved around it. And to be clear, I'm not trying to criticise anybody else because it's not my place. It's just not what I want to be part of. I want my channel to be a reflection of me and who I am, and the people who get things from this will hopefully be similar. But I can't guarantee it's always going to be the case. Anyway, so I've decided that I'm going to carry on. I'm going to carry on in the way that is important to me, for the time being at least. And I'm going to put aside my reservations, but they're always going to be there in the background just in case. So I'm not sure I've explained that very well, but I think that came up over the weekend. Right, let me get back on track, sorry. So I want to talk about my van. So today's Wednesday. Give you an update on where we are. On Monday, I tentatively started the engine and listened out for a rattle, and it was really purring. It was a lovely sound, and I thought, oh, have I got away with it? Has it had a little rest? Has it kind of had a day off on Sunday, and now it's going to be fine? I didn't think it would be, but I was sort of hoping that. So I thought I'd go for a little short test drive just to see what the issue was. And as I backed out of my drive, I realised I had no power steering. Now, there will be those of you out there that now immediately can tell me what the issue is from the bits of information I've told you, because you're clever people and you know about mechanical stuff. And I think I now know what's wrong with it, but I'll come to that in a moment. So I had no power steering. I could steer, but if you've ever tried steering a van with no power steering, it's a very different kettle of fish. It's very hard. And so I pushed it up, I drove back onto the drive and left it there. And I talked to my partner about what we're going to do. And I decided that I was going to get myself to drive to the garage, but she would come with me in her car behind me, so that if I did break down, we could then I could have some recovery straight away, for me at least. And the garage is about 5 miles away from where I live, and we were plotting which would be the best route to get to the garage without too many really strong turns. So when you're driving with power steering, the actual driving round normal bends is okay, but trying to reverse, do a 3-point turn is so difficult. So as long as I didn't go the wrong way and have to turn around in the road, I'd be fine. But I wanted to try and avoid doing a busy roundabout, which is really my key worry. So we've plotted a route, and I made my way there, and I had 3 what I would call key moments, which I thought, if I get around these bends, would be fine. So I had a right-hand bend from a lane to a busier road. I had another right-hand 90-degree bend from a small road to a slightly larger road, and then I had a left-hand turn at a big roundabout. And as long as I got those 3 done all right, I was going to be fine. So got myself along, and it was fine. I got round the first bend all right, and I thought, oh, this is going to work. And I made my way to the garage, and then I relaxed, didn't I? I relaxed right at the end. Now, the problem I have is I don't know, I have not been to the garage it's a new garage for me. I don't quite know the area very well, where I'm going, and I missed the turning off to go to the garage on this industrial estate because I was not concentrating, and I ended up realising I'd gone too far, but I wasn't quite sure how to get back to the right road. I wasn't quite sure where the road was, so I pulled into an industrial estate road, and I had to do a 3-point turn in this road, and my stress levels went through the roof. I was swearing at myself, at the van. I was really, really tense and stressed really quickly because I'd messed up, and I was trying to work out I didn't know where to go, and I couldn't focus on what I was doing. And I called my partner. She was ringing me. I was trying to deal with the phone call and the traffic around me and everything. And it got really stressful really quickly. And then what really increased my stress was I had a warning. I got turned around and I made my way back, and I was probably about half a mile from the garage. I had one turning to go to off the road I was on into the industrial estate, and then one turning on into the actual unit. And a warning came up and said, brake system failure, stop the vehicle. And my engine was sounding fine, but I thought I've not seen that before. That sounds bad. That looks bad. So I went at 20 miles an hour down this road. I turned into the industrial estate, hoping I get to the unit. Carried on 20 miles an hour down the road, turned off outside the unit, turned off the engine, and I'd made it. I went to see the guy. Obviously, he wasn't expecting me. Obviously, he'd really booked up. I explained the situation. He said, "Okay, we'll just move your van, reverse it into this gap, and we'll look at it later." I went back to the van, tried to start the engine. It was completely dead. Absolutely no way of starting. So we had to push the van back into the parking place. I left the key with him, and I went off on my merry way, leaving it to him. Now, I was very lucky that I didn't take that job in Scotland, going from Glasgow up to the northeast, because I would have been stuck up there or stuck on the way back down. And I was very lucky to have got home on Saturday night without breaking down. I was very lucky, despite me messing up. If I hadn't missed the junction, I'd have got to the garage without any brake warning. I was very lucky to get turned around and get back without having the engine going off before I broke down. So all in all, I'm a very lucky person to have got my van from Scotland back to the garage on Monday. Now, from me describing what had happened to the guy at the garage, he said he thought it's likely to be the alternator or the alternator belt that's gone wrong. And I think you will know better than I will. I think the alternator belt will be something that transfers the movement energy, the kinetic energy of the wheels or the engine into, I'm guessing, electrical energy in the alternator, which I'm guessing recharges the battery. I don't know. That seems to make some sense. And today, he's ordered those parts and he'll be fitting them tomorrow, which is Thursday. So I'm thinking that's what the problem was. It's probably the belt came off, which is the rattling that I heard, or the belt was broken in some way, and the alternator has therefore not been able to charge the battery, and therefore the more that I've driven, I'm guessing it's just drained the battery down to a point at which you won't be able to do power steering or in the end the brake system. That all makes sense to me logically. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. I think that's what's happened. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I'll tell you when I find out. I'm guessing a couple £100 maybe, including labour. Hopefully it's not too much. And then I'm back on the road. So I've not been able to work on Monday, obviously, because the van was in. I was getting the van to the garage on Monday. Yesterday, Tuesday, I just had a day off because obviously I didn't have a van. Didn't even think about doing anything. I've rung him today, Wednesday. I've assumed I'll have today off as well because I wouldn't get the van back in time. But I thought I might have got it back today, but I'm not going to. Thursday, he said he'll get it done tomorrow, but it might not be done. He wants the van off site as soon as possible. He's not going to hang on to it any more than he needs to. So I'm guessing it'll be done in the morning. I'll be able to pick it up at lunchtime, but it might not be. It might be at the end of the day. So I'm probably, worst case scenario, I'm going to be off work until Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, and I can work again on Friday. Best case scenario would have been in on Monday, back at the end of day on Tuesday. I could have 2 days off work. So I've only really lost between the worst case scenario and best case scenario. I've lost 2 days. It's 2 days difference. So there's no way I could have got the van back to work by before the end of play on Tuesday, and I'm going to get it back by the end of play on Thursday. So when I think about this in terms of the variance of possibilities, I could have worked today, or I could have worked tomorrow, or I can work Friday. So best case scenario, I work today, but I'm okay having today off because I had a lie-in this morning and I could get stuff done. So tomorrow I might miss out on half a day or a day's work, but I'm back on Friday. So I don't see it as being a big problem. Although, saying all that, if I'd had no breakdown whatsoever, I suppose I'd had a full week of work this week and a full week of work next week. That's 2 weeks in September of invoices I can generate to be paid by the end of October, which would be really helpful. But I'm not going to think like that. I think that's thinking too negatively. I'm going to think positively. I'm safe. My van's being repaired. I'll be back on the road soon. I'll be back earning this week. So I'm happy with that. And it gives me a chance to kind of recharge my batteries a bit in terms of my energy and also get up to date with some videos. Right. That's that. So I'll leave that one with you. I suppose I wanted to get this video out today because there's a lot going on and there's a lot to say, and I think I'm glad that I've done it. I'm not glad it's a blank video because I might as well just do a podcast in this case, but I just don't have the technology to do podcasts. I don't have the technology to have great sound if I go walking outside. So it's a bit of a compromise. But I think by now you know that there's not a lot to look at in my videos. Certainly not a person to look at anyway, at least not me. Right, thank you for listening. I hope you're all well. I hope the weather's not getting to you too much. It's been quite bad recently, sort of wet and windy weather. What have you all learned today?